Okay, so I wanted to talk about disability benefits because this month on the Change Starts Here Collaborative, we're talking about disability rights and how that impacts many things. So, for example, I'm doing December where I'm raising funds and awareness for human trafficking. And human trafficking is something that impacts so many different populations in America. And it especially affects people who don't have consistent income because it's very easy for someone to be like, oh, I have a job for you, right? And so that vulnerability exists because of how the system is set up in place. And so as we kind of raise our awareness as I don't have a disability, and so I'm trying to educate myself as well as others, what that would look like for individuals who do have disabilities. So for example, I was doing research on I think it's commiserate wage, I think is what it's called, where you can pay way under the lowest wage. So like everybody else has to get paid $7 or above, but if we decide that you're giving us 25% worth of work of another person and you have a disability, then I can pay you less.
Yeah.
Which is like, I've known about that for years and it's made me mad for years, but just when you read it again, you're like, what?
Yeah.
And those same companies then boast about how they employ
Hi.
people with
Yeah,
disabilities.
disabilities.
That's
Yeah.
the part that, yeah, makes my eye twitch. So when we're talking about disability benefits as a whole, I know it's a relatively broad topic, but if we were talking about like SSI, because that's a federal program, obviously states have different things set in place. What does that look like for someone to apply for it, and how does that benefit them?
So I will start off by saying that SSI, even though it is a federally mandated program for individuals with disabilities, it really varies from state to state.
Mm.
So in my state, it will look Georgia, or if my state of Georgia, it will look differently for someone who lives in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
or California or, in any other place. So I would definitely encourage individuals to look within your own state government, your social security office within your local area and see what the requirements or what the process is like because that can look different state to state. However, if you do believe that you have or you have been diagnosed with a disability, or if you take a leave of absence from your job and you're on disability now, or you want to obtain those benefits, that would be the first place to start is the Social Security office, and then you would go through their process of evaluation. Just because you may be diagnosed with a disability doesn't necessarily mean that you qualify for SSI. They have different stipulations, requirements, and it's a really arduous process.
Yeah.
I have a disability, but I do not qualify for SSI,
Mm.
and so each state is different. Just in doing some further background on this, I think they say 2/3 of people who apply for SSI initially end up getting denied. So you do have to appeal a lot of those decisions as well, making sure you have documentation, seeing the doctors, because the whole purpose of SSI, and I know sometimes in some spaces it has a bad name because people think, well, oh, I'll just give them disability because you don't want to work. But that's very false. Um, there are very legitimate reasons why people are in disability because they cannot work or they're not able to. So if you are in a position where you can benefit from getting an SSI benefit, that's what it's there for people who are not able to work due to their disability, and that helps to supplement your income.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is that tied to eligibility for any kind of insurance, like for Medicaid? I think I got the. Are
Um,
those two things the same, or is that a separate application process?
I believe they go hand in hand.
Okay.
So if you do qualify for SSI, I think you do qualify for Medicaid insurance benefits as well. But like I said, you would really have to look into your own local
Okay.
government or your local state to see exactly what that process looks like.
Yeah, and when you're talking about the paperwork and the proving the eligibility, although it's understandable why we need to do that, for me, working with the population of brain-based disabilities, executive functioning being the primary concern. Organizing all of that information that's not a skill. I mean, they would need assistance with that, which means that somebody that already doesn't have the right supports in place isn't going to be able to apply. So that it's definitely not like, oh, we have so many people with disabilities who are on it. There's a ton of people who wouldn't be able to apply because of what I just listed that should be on it.
Yeah.
So, okay.
Sometimes in those cases, it can get kind of tricky, especially if you've always had benefits. Like if you have benefits when you're a child and then you're an adult, I think a lot of those benefits, they can cross over depending on the severity of your disability. But then if you acquire a disability, like later on in life,
Right.
that can be a totally different process. And I have personal experience and even having to go through that process of denial and appeal and having to gather a lot of that information and documentation. Because the thing with SSI is not like once you apply, you get it lifelong. You have to continually prove or provide the documentation that you have a disability, and not only that you have a disability, but that you are unable to work. And really, that's the whole purpose of SSI, is to be that supplementary income for people who are unable to work. If for any instance you are able to work, or they deem you as suitable for a person to get a job, then of course those can be different things that can come up that can maybe prevent you from fully benefiting from SSI.
Yeah, and there's well, two things. One thing you mentioned was the applying again, the requalification process, I guess. And in the just in the last few years, they were talking about changing that and making it more frequent, which puts more of a burden. I mean, the burden of proof is always on the person with a disability, but it's just more frequent. And there's already so many. I mean, we have a disability, you're managing so many different specialists and appointments, and it's not most of what we're talking about when we're talking about especially developmental disabilities. They're permanent. We're not growing out of this, right?
Yeah.
But also when you're talking about people who are unable to work, there's dynamic disabilities where like my capabilities change from day to day significantly. And so there are days when I would like to contribute to society, but now I'm in like this category that says this is what I am or am not allowed to do. And I imagine that that's a lot.
Yeah, it can be. And I've heard, like I said, I've experienced this on a personal level and from other people that I've communicated with in the disability community. And I hope in the future we do take another look at policy legislation that looks at SSI requirements and just some of the loopholes that they require individuals with disabilities to look at, because it's really not a one band-aid fits all type situation. Some people are unable to get jobs not because they don't have the functionality or capacity, but because there is a thing called workplace discrimination. So a lot of employers, they discriminate against people with disabilities. And so some people, I mean, I know I personally was told that when I lost my job in 2000, I want to say 18, that they told me, well, it's okay, you can just apply for disability, as if that was like a solution. And I was like, that's not like a compliment, it's very difficult. And then, like you said, people's functionality levels, they vary time to time. So I'm thinking, I believe that, with everything that has happened, even now from COVID 19, a lot of healthcare policies are being reevaluated and seeing how can it be more beneficial to people with disabilities and more accessible, because we have a workplace, we have an open workplace, a work market, and we want to make sure that that's accessible for all people and that we don't put unnecessary barriers for people to be able to get access. And if they're not able to get access because of the severity of their disability or their capability or functionality level, then we provide something that is both palatable for people to get, be able to manage and work with.
Yeah, no, I think that's the goal is not that we just throw a check at people with disabilities every month and we're like, just right? Like we want to integrate. And I think part of it is our expansion of understanding of what disabilities are. Like before it was like, we thought just if you're sitting in a wheelchair, you have a disability. If you're not, you're not. And it's like not at all what this is, right? And so I'm hoping that we are looking at it more with a more complex lens as we decide what things look like in the future. I've heard another barrier is that in order to receive some benefits, you have to maintain a savings account that's very low, like I think less than $2,000.
Yeah.
And my thought on that is, one, like, savings accounts are good ideas for everybody. Like, you want to like have that rainy day fund. But also there are some disability equipment, therapies, programs that are not covered by all the things that we're talking about. And so if you can't save for an extended period of time, then you can't, like, how do you get yourself an accessible van if you can only have $2,000 in your bank account? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so I think the system is set up in a way that seems as if, well, I think it's almost like, it's like a politician's idea of what the best case scenario would be, right? Because we want to make sure that people are not abusing the system, when really the system is not working the best way that it can for people with disabilities.
I know in the past couple of years, they, excuse my background noise.
Right.
I know the past couple of years, they actually just passed something called the ABLE Act in 2014, which enables people with disabilities to be able to have a savings account if they get SSI or disability. So I know new things like that are coming up. I know a couple of conferences that I attended on last year before COVID happened, where that ABLE account representation is being projected to people, the disability community, more. So letting people know that, hey, this is what's out here, this is what you're able to do, because that question has come up a lot, especially for people who have like adult children or adults who have disabilities, and the concept of that financial stability, like, you know, I have an adult child, but they're not able to work, and, you know, money and different things like that, and the only money that they get is from SSI. And so I think that piece of legislation was really pushed by a lot of caregivers, a lot of parents who just kind of had that future concern of their child's financial stability. And so I believe that the ABLE accounts, again, they vary from state to state, because what's it called in Georgia? Like, I think they call it like the peach ABLE or something, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
They have different names for it in different states, but I do know that the ABLE account, it does allow individuals with disabilities to open up a savings account where they are able to go over that, you know, federally mandated limit and be able to save more money. And that money has to be used for, you know, specific disability related things.
Right. Well, and that's great. I knew about that from a parenting perspective. We have a special needs trust, and I talked about that earlier this week. But I wasn't thinking about it from the individual themselves. Like, a trust is set up like by your parents for you. So this is like something you do for yourself, which is awesome. Well, thank you so much. You do so much great advocacy. I don't know like how I stumbled on your account, but I clicked a lot, and then hello. So I'm very excited to continue to follow you. What are ways that people can connect with you, or things that you want to tell people about what you do?
So yeah, hi. So my name, like I said in the beginning, is Rasheera Dobson. I'm the founder of the Beauty with a Twist brand and the Dobson Foundation. Both of these organizations are dedicated to creating spaces of inclusion for women and girls with disabilities. So due to COVID, we had a lot of, you know, different things come up. So we did a lot of virtual online community engagement as of now. But most people who know me find me in the streets, organizing, partnering, collaborating with different disability patient-led organizations such as yours. I'm just trying to bring more education and awareness to the disability community, as always. It's so needed. So you are welcome to follow me on all social media accounts. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I think that's all of them. I feel like they add like new social media things like all the time. But yeah, I'm really active on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. So you're welcome to follow me there, and anything, projects, collaboration, you know, just getting my hands in the ground, getting dirty, and putting my advocacy skills to the use, you know. So
yeah,
thank you for letting me be on here and just share a little bit of my knowledge on SSI benefits.
no, it's just this little primer. Go check your local laws, but here we're just a little drop of knowledge for you. So
yeah, definitely, I encourage you. You have to check your local state, even though some of these laws are federally mandated. States, they have their own separate regulations and policies that you want to make sure that you adhere by, especially if you move from one state to another where your benefits, you had benefits in one state and then you decide to move to another state,
Yeah.
you want to make sure that you know what that process is like, because that can be very different. And a lot of people, they can get stuck on that too, because your benefits are not like transferable from state to state.
Right.
You
Right.
probably
A whole new
usually have to
thing.
reapply. It's a whole new thing. So be cognizant of that as well. But yeah, thank you. I'm glad to share. And if you have any questions, you can always feel free to direct message me or hit me up, and I'll try. If I don't know the answer, I have a lot of people who I'm in contact or network with who do, and we can share some links and different things like that to make sure the community is educated.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. You're such an asset. I'm glad to know you, and I have our DM conversation has already started, so I'm sure I'll have a question at some point. Thank you
Well,
so much for
awesome.
sharing. I
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much. You too. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye bye.